please join me in welcoming Elena Keller.
Wow, look around this room, ladies. Look around this room, gentlemen. Look around this room at the future of transportation. Now, in order to have a strong future in transportation, we have to visit some points of the past to make sure that we bring them into our future. This is how I used to get to work. I had to get into an 18-wheeler and drive to work every single day. No, okay, I'm kidding. I had a sexy black-on-black Honda Prelude that I bought myself for graduation. Oh yeah, she was slick. She could turn on a dime, had a dashboard interior. Oh, it was my pride and joy. And that's what I drove to dispatch to then get my orders for where I needed to drive a truck. Now, on any given day, that could be a semi, as you see pictured, or it could be a pickup truck. But either way, I was in a truck. And being in a truck and being in the oil field, I learned a lot. As a matter of fact, the whole idea for my field engineering time was my field engineering training. And there are some really, really important lessons that I still keep with me that I want to share with you. That first one is that, well, if you're going to drive a truck, if you're going to drive in the oil field, you have to learn how to follow directions like an oil field worker. That means turn left at the cattle guard, turn right at the cow, turn right again at the next mariachi band. Because I actually worked in South Texas, so that mariachi band actually took me back. I was like, yes, yes, yes. The second lesson that I learned from the cab was, as an engineer, I knew that Newton's laws are true. And in particular, Newton's law of motion, that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, or an object in motion tends to stay at motion unless an equal or opposite force is acted upon it. How many of you said that with me? That is music to a geek's ears, right? And it's true. I mean, and nothing held more true than when I was learning to drive an 18-wheeler and had to suddenly slam on the brakes and figure out how to make this thing stop in time to not get hit by a train. Thankfully, I survived. That's why I'm here to tell the tale. But it gave me a few gray hairs early on in my life when I wasn't quite ready for that kind of experience. Now, it's the third lesson that I learned from the cab of an 18-wheeler that is really important. And that is that being in the front of the convoy is a lot of responsibility. In fact, being in front of the convoy means that you are leading the way. Just like each and every one of you in this room, you are leading the way with an immense responsibility to not only grow, build, and direct yourselves, but to do that for others so that the industry can thrive and ultimately so that the world can thrive. Because the transportation industry makes the world go round. I mean, none of us would be here without it. None of us would be in this building without it. Whether it is a truck, whether it is a plane, whether it is a ship, which I will be boarding in a couple of days, whether it is any of the means and modes of transportation that help this world go round. So one of the things that I want you to do is to consider how impactful the work that you do is and how instrumental it is to the world at large. I mean, that's a great responsibility. Are you okay with that level of responsibility? When you get up every morning, do you have palpitations and sweats because of that responsibility? Okay, no. I don't want you to do that, but I want you to understand the gravity of it. And the gravity of that means that you will embrace who you are, your authenticity, so that you can then help the world understand how women are leading transportation. Now, I know a little bit about this from my career as an energy veteran. And one of the things that I live by, a principle that I live by, is that iron sharpens iron. And so I had to go through my own journey of sharpening my own iron. And at first, it was powered by pride. As I was moving through my career and figuring things out, quite frankly, I'm an Aggie engineer. Any other Aggie? Whoop, okay, I got a couple of whoops. Now, one thing I will tell you about every person behind that whoop is there ain't nothing she can't do. because she's been told that there was nothing she can do, and she believes it. And that's what pride is. Pride is a self-assurance that I can do what I said I'm going to do, and I'm going to get through it. And that journey started at the well site, doing more than just driving an 18-wheeler. As a matter of fact, that was a very small part of what I was responsible for. It's just the most fun part that people like to talk about because, I'm only 5'3", and you're trying to picture cute little old me behind a semi-drive. Think about it. Think about it. Okay, no, this is how I was dressed. In a hard hat and steel toe boots, coming to work just like the rest of my crew. And I worked in South Texas, so the reality was I was working where the men are men and the women are too. And that was the attitude. The attitude was that I should be out there and I should not only get my job done, but I should get it done like a guy. Newsflash, I'm not a guy. Newsflash, not only is my biology different, but there are just different things about my life and my future that are going to be different from my male colleagues. And I knew and I recognized this early, but my goal at the time was to learn as much as I could so that I could be a change agent, because I couldn't change things from the cab of the 18-wheeler. No, I had to grow and I had to advance. And as I moved up, then I had the opportunity to be a change agent. And that's what I encourage each and every one of you in this room, no matter where you are in your journey, remember that you have the opportunity to drive change. So one of the things that I was responsible for was the lab on location. And there are some things that you have to do when you frack a well. Yes, I'm a recovering fracker. There are some things that you have to do. You have to make sure that you understand the purpose for each of the fluids. You have some fluids, some additives that make the fluid thicker, some additives that make the fluid thinner, some additives that make the fluid bubbly. But whatever it was, you had to know its distinct purpose. Just like we have to know our own distinct purpose. So I was in the field long enough to learn all that I need to learn in the lab and all that I need to learn about computers. And someone somewhere got word that in my spare time I like to play with databases. Now, yes, I will admit there's a special kind of geek that just plays with databases in her spare time, but that's who I was. And thankfully, word got out, and so I was then moved into a role where I could then create databases for the organization all around the world. It started in North America because the reality is, like most great change initiatives, well, you start with one scope and then it expands. So after having done what was considered to be the unimaginable by taking tally books away from people in the field and showing them another way, having done that, then I was able to do this all around the world. And so when I was able to do this all around the world, I would sit in my office with my little scarf on my neck, feeling really good about myself. And I did all of this during my daylight hours because in the evenings, I had a family to tend to. And so the reality is I'm not just an engineer and a project manager, but I'm the mom of 4 boys. And so that complete package, we're gonna pause on that. Now I'm here to tell you that there are men now, so I survived. But it's the reality that we're not just the work that we do. As a matter of fact, the work that we do may shape us and inform how we lead at home and vice versa. When we talk about our authentic selves, it's realizing that we are us no matter where we go. So I would be in the office trying not to mom people, and I would be at home trying not to project manage people. My husband would always tell me, babe, don't project manage me today. And I'm like, well, it's still sitting there. And so the reality is we become, and I recognized at that point that I was the collection of all of these experiences and all of these parts of me. And so I'd made a name for myself, powered by pride, because there was nothing that I couldn't do. So I didn't bat an eye when this handsome man asked me to marry him, because those 4 beautiful boys that you see there, 3 I got as wedding presents. 3 I got when I said, I do, I do, I do, I do. And then God has a sense of humor, and he added 1 more. And that youngest, that boss baby, we'll talk about him later. But so there I was, making all of these things happen, making all of these things work, fixing some hot dogs in the evening. Don't judge me, that's a meal. Preparing whatever needed to be prepared, taking people to practice, making things happen, because that's what we do. And I was proud of what I was doing, and I was grateful for what I was doing. And I wanted to keep doing more. And so as I'd completed this assignment where I'd led some things, some international change initiatives, the next opportunity that I had was in knowledge management. And so when I moved to knowledge management, I then had the opportunity to go on an audit trip, because part of quality was understanding quality processes. So the company sent me on a mission trip to Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. For those of you who play Jeopardy, I'll give you this one answer, that Equatorial Guinea is the only Spanish-speaking country on the continent. And as such, I figured, I can use un poquito español from high school, and I would make my way through, and I kind of did. But more importantly than the audit itself was the fact that while I was there, immediately upon landing, I looked around and I recognized scenarios that I hadn't seen before. I saw disparities and suffering that I hadn't seen at that level before. I saw my coworkers and my colleagues living in lash of luxury, and then I saw people going home to no running water and sleeping on dirt floors. The disparities that I saw, I couldn't ignore, and I recognized that while my company sent me there, it didn't take me long to realize I was there for a different purpose. And it was that different purpose that then led me to send an email home, a simple email that said that I wanted to send clothes back to this area. I wanted to send clothes because I saw children fetching dirty water, and half of them didn't have clothes on. And the response that I got from that reinforced that I could leverage my position, because my position and my purpose go hand in hand. And so the recognition of that began to shift things in me and my heart while I was on the trip. And when I got home, after 10 days of being away, it was my longest business trip at that point, and the longest time I'd been away from my little ones. And there was this aching in my heart to want to do more and to want to hold my company accountable to doing more. And ultimately, what I was really left with was the understanding of what mattered most. Yes, I was proud of the work that I had done, and yes, I was eager to continue to do more. I was in no way wanting to exit the workforce. I was in no way wanting to do less at work, but I wanted to figure out how to make it all work. Because the reality, like many working women and many working moms, I was surviving. I was just getting by. I ended every night exhausted, every morning even more exhausted. It's like, what happened between going to bed and getting up? Didn't I sleep? Still exhausted. Anybody else in here get up in the morning and you're like, did I sleep last night? Why do I not feel rested? And the reason I didn't feel rested is because I was surviving. I was in survival mode. I was trying to make everything happen, and I was trying to do everything by myself, because the operative word in that sentence was I. I was trying to make things happen. I was trying to do it. Had a very supportive spouse, still is my very supportive spouse almost 26 years later. He wasn't the problem. I was relying on what I wanted to do. Excuse me. So I come from a Caribbean background. And one thing we learn in the Caribbean is that we live from the land. We grow what we eat. It means we have a green thumb. I didn't get that. I don't know what happened. It missed me. So I planted knockout roses in my yard. I had my groundskeeper plant some knockout roses. And knockout roses are genetically engineered to be resilient and to withstand what's happening in the Houston climate and around other places in Texas. They're popular. You see them everywhere. And the beauty of them is they don't need much tending to. They don't need much care. Ooh, excuse me. I'm gonna lead y'all to dance in a minute. Because they don't need much care, they work well in environments where someone is not going to nurture them. That's exactly what I felt like, a knockout rose that was just gonna soldier through, that would push through anything and everything. If it needed to get done, I was gonna get it done, no matter what. And that mindset, this mindset of I have to be twice as good or 3 times as good, depending on who you talk to, has a pervasive way of pushing us to our brink. And for me, it pushed me to my brink in the closet one night where I just cried and cried and cried. And I cried because I was exhausted. I cried because I was burned out. I cried because I felt undervalued. I cried because I was angry. And I was hurt. But it wasn't just being hurt about the world around, it was about how do I move past it. I wanted to go from surviving to thriving. I didn't want to look like the roses that you see there. I wanted to look like these. I wanted to flourish. I wanted to rise. And that's what I want for each and every one of you in this room, to not survive, but to thrive. And so for me, at that recognition, at that reality, I knew that I needed to do some things differently. I knew that I needed to approach some things differently. And it started with, instead of being powered by pride, I needed to be powered by purpose. Because on that trip, I recognized what my purpose was. I recognized that not only was the purpose of that trip not really business, it was for me to see some things that I hadn't seen and experienced so that I would do more of that when I got back home. Because suffering and disparity is not isolated to any one part of the world. As a matter of fact, my servant leadership, once I recognized this, I connected with many more foundations, many more nonprofits, many more ways of serving that allowed me to, yes, still move and work, but to work with fulfillment. But I first had to hold up the mirror and to look in that mirror and ask that mirror what it saw. Mirror, mirror on the wall. And then I had to put that mirror over my heart. And when I put that mirror over my heart, I began to ask myself, what was I passionate about? What did I care about? What mattered most? And as I began to do that and reflect on that, I realized that for me, the height of any project was when I got to engage with stakeholders and when I got to deliver training, and also when I got to train even younger people. I love to teach. It was an interesting revelation, and when we sit with ourselves, we have the opportunity to recognize these things in ourselves that sometimes somebody else saw that we hadn't even seen yet. And so as I was sitting with myself, I began to recognize that I want to make some changes. I want to make some changes in how I show up in the world and how I contribute to the world around me and what I expect and don't expect of others. But I knew a very important scientific truth, which is that change needs a catalyst. And I knew that in order for me to not only start this new life journey, in order to sustain it, I needed some energy, some momentum to keep that going. And that's what led to the understanding of how our emotions drive us and how we're always being told, don't make an emotional decision. And yes, there's some validity to that. But when we dismiss what our emotions are telling us, we dismiss very important data. And within ourselves, that data is, what is it that we care about? What is it that gives us fulfillment? What is it that connects us to our purpose so that we can work and serve? It was really important to recognize this, and so much so, it became the basis for my body of work and my book, What's Your Catalyst? The Power of Managed Change. And the key thing is that you want to ask yourself the question why, and understand what your why is and what it is comprised of, because it's not just one thing. And so in order to figure that out, I wanted to encourage you, and I went on what I call my catalyst journey. And now this catalyst journey is, again, about not just starting something, but starting something that maintains, that can be sustained. You ever gone to the gym in April and wonder where everybody was? Yeah, because they made a resolution or even maybe an intention. Sounds better. But what they didn't do is map out how to actually accomplish that or how to actually integrate this into their lives. And that's what change leadership is all about, is how do we not just spark a great idea because we're creative, but how do we then implement this great idea in ourselves, others, and our organizations so that they grow and thrive? How do we do that? Well, there's a simple approach that I use, which starts with knowing yourself, and then you make a strategic plan, then you have to keep your focus, and then finally, you have to sharpen someone else. So what we're gonna do in this time is we're gonna walk through this journey for each and every one of you in this room as you consider not only what you're going to take away from this conference, but what else it is that you've been growing and developing and considering about your next. Because we're always faced with next. And it's how we navigate next that differentiates us and shows how we can continue to be energized and successful and making the impact that we are called to make. So that first, as I mentioned, was know yourself. That is holding that mirror up and expecting it to answer. Now here's the thing. Does your mirror talk to you nice? No. So start teaching your mirror how to talk to you. Teach your mirror how to tell you, hello, lovely. That's how my mirror talks to me. But you know how my mirror used to talk to me? My mirror used to say, well, you know, you didn't return that email and you didn't do this. I mean, it gave me a whole list of things that I didn't do. Like, who needs that in their life? I didn't need that. So the first thing that I want you to do is to teach your mirror, i.e. you, how to talk to you. Because if you can't respond to yourself with compassion, you certainly won't respond to others, and you certainly won't expect it of others. And see, there's this challenge for resilient leaders to be so strong and to be so capable of coming back time and time again. That's what resilience is all about. But roses that have beautiful blooms also have dangerous thorns. And if we're not careful, those dangerous thorns will point in on us and keep us down. So as you're getting to know yourself, the first thing you want to do is to celebrate your strengths. What is it that you are good at? Have a party about what you have done and have a party about what you're going to do. And if you don't know, grab a friend and ask them, what strengths do you see in me? I've had people after workshops say, well, my manager told me that I was really good at this, but I don't really see it. Sometimes people will see something in you that you don't see in yourself yet. So ask yourself, what is it that I am good at? What is it that when I'm not even thinking about it, I can just do it? Or what is it that other people continuously ask me to do? Most people who can sing, those who are honest about it, have gotten affirmations of that gift from people. Ooh, girl, you can really sing. Now, if after you sang, people just said, oh, you probably don't want to be in the choir, okay? So we want to, as much as we want to ask ourselves, we also want to pay attention to what kind of signals we're getting around us. Now, my mama always said, consider the source, because you know your haters are just never going to be nice to you. So don't take their feedback, but do have trusted people that will help you celebrate your strengths and recognize what they are. And then ultimately, you want to know your unique purpose. Because when you celebrate your strengths and when you understand your development areas and understand your motivations, that in turn brings you to your purpose. And that begins to show why you were uniquely created. What's so special about you? And the reality is, what's so special about you is very different from what's so special about you. That's the beauty of it. Now, this requires kind of going in the Wayback Machine a little bit and figuring out what is it that has happened in your life that has helped to either demonstrate what your purpose is or in some cases to cultivate it. I had to go through my own journey figuring out what is it about the events of my life, of my childhood in particular, that began to demonstrate these. I mentioned that when I looked and said, oh, I love teaching, I enjoy education. Well, you know what? As I began to reflect, I started teaching kids in the apartments when I was 5 years old. Do you know that if you put all the kids on the stairwell and you turn them around and make them all face up, you got a classroom? Like, you didn't even need equipment. And so we find that when we reflect, that we get to recognize our purpose. Our purpose isn't something that we create, it's something that we connect to. It's already there. And the thing about your catalyst is knowing how to connect to that purpose and use it, because your purpose is not about you. When you think about the WTS Foundation, that is about you knocking out of the park at work, but also connecting to bring up the next generation of leaders in transportation. So what are you doing to consider the world around you? How are you leveraging your purpose? How are you leveraging that? And what you do is you put that together, and that's your catalyst. That is your purpose, your passions, and your priorities. Your catalyst will help drive you. It will help guide you, and it'll keep you from going off the rail. So when we know this about ourselves, when we know what energizes us, what allows us to move forward even in some of the most difficult situations, then we realize how powerful our catalyst is, and we should really be in a hurry to figure out what it is and put it to good use. It's not enough to know what our purpose is. It's not enough to know what our passions are. It's not enough to know what our priorities are if we're not allowing them to drive and manage the decisions in our lives. We want to be empowered by those decisions. And then once we have our catalyst defined and we know what it is, and we at least have an idea of what our mission statement is, what our core values are, what defines us, then we think about what is next. Where do we go and how do we get there? That's what Make a Strategic Plan is all about. If you're wanting to go from the surviving rows to the thriving rows, there are some steps that you would need to take, some actions that you would need to take. And the reality is every action begins with a decision and a vision. So you have to see it first. You envision what your next role, promotion, or project is, and what are the steps to get there. You envision what the next level of your career is. You envision what your next step in your family is. And you begin to make decisions around that. And you're guided, and those decisions are guided by your catalyst. And from your decision, you then continuously make the next decision. And what is the next right thing? And what is the next right thing? And the next right thing. And that's how we grow. It's not about trying to hurry up and get there. It's about how do we evolve there. And as we're working on our evolution and as we are becoming, then we want to ask ourselves, well, how do I stay focused on the mission? So that third part of the approach is to keep your focus. When I became a woman of a certain age, I went to the eye doctor, and my eye doctor says, oh, okay, Ms. Hill, I'll give you some bifocals. And I was like, whoa, what? Some bifocals? Like, my Nana has bifocals. He says, okay, I'll get you some progressives. Okay, all right. I like, that sounds better, that feels better. All right, yes, progressives. And the idea is that I can look all the way down there, and I can see clearly because the top of the glasses allow me to see far. But then if I need to see something right here, I don't have to remove my glasses. I can see it right here just by changing my eyes. Just by changing how I see. And the same thing when it comes to our focus. We have to have that dual vision that allows us to see long term. We have to be able to see the strategy, and then we have to be able to see the details to manage the details. And we do so without completely changing our head, without turning our head, without losing sight of what we are doing. This is how we sustain our momentum in our growth. This is what keeps us from stagnating. This is what keeps us from getting stuck. This is what keeps us from backtracking and saying, well, okay, I was making good progress, but now I'm here. Because another part of keeping our focus is constantly reconnecting to what matters most and why we're on this journey to begin with. When you think about transportation, nobody gets on a bus and they don't really know why they're going. They don't know where they're going. They just get on the bus and say, I'm going to ride the bus around. Well, no, I've talked to some people that have done that. It can be quite exciting. But in life, we don't do that. We don't go to the airport and get on a plane and go, I don't know where the plane is going. We're just going to get on it and we're going to see where it goes. That's haphazard. And we're laughing at this, but there are people who approach goals haphazardly. They approach what they're going to do next haphazardly, on a whim, on emotion, on a thought. And then wonder why they weren't able to sustain that. It wasn't rooted in the right reason. And if we want to rise, we have to be properly rooted and properly connected to what matters most. So as we're growing and as we're evolving, very pertinent question always comes up. And that's what gets in the way. So I ask you, what gets in the way? What gets in the way from you accomplishing your next? What gets in the way of you being who you said you are? Because integrity is who we say we are, is being who we say we are. What gets in the way? I know we could say busyness, but very often it's us. And that's when the mirror comes back. That what gets in the way is sometimes our own trepidation. So as I was embarking on this journey, and the step that I chose to take on this journey in order to accomplish what I felt I wanted to do in that season was to start my own business. So after 11 years with this multinational giant, I decided to step out on faith and start my own business. Now that did not look like this. It looked like this. And much of what we do that matters looks like that. It's stepping with wobbly knees. It's moving anyway. And the only way that we can do that and keep doing that is if that movement that we're making is aligned with our purpose. Because if it's not, then we'll start it and then we'll stop, and fear will actually cripple us. But when we are purpose-driven, fear doesn't stand a chance. Because remember, courage is not the absence of fear, it's doing it anyway. It's doing it because you know it's what you are supposed to do. Now here's the reality. Life is rough, and there are some things that get in the way that are beyond our control. There are situations and circumstances that happen in our lives that can completely derail our progress. When my family, as we were celebrating 10 years of being a blended family, we got the news that my oldest son had been diagnosed with cancer. Now, as you can imagine, this took the wind completely out of my sails. And as we were trying to figure out what this meant for our family, as we were trying to figure out where we go from here, our oldest son, Malcolm, who fought diligently, ultimately lost his battle with cancer after 3 years. He was 18 when he was diagnosed, 21 when we lost him. And the reality is there are some things that get in the way. There are some things that completely halt our momentum. And when we think about Newton's first law of motion, there are some things that are those equal and opposite forces that are acting upon us. And what we do in those moments is have grace on ourselves. Is not to say, well, you know what, I still have to do this. That's when you ask, well, maybe I don't have to do it now. And the reality is the best way for us to manage those situations, because whether it is the loss of a loved one, whether it is a divorce, whether it is layoffs, whether it is shifts in the industry, there's something that is going to slam on the brakes of life and make it difficult to keep moving forward. But when we are proactive in how we build our resilience, not through tough grit and pride, but through purpose and grace, then we can weather those storms and we can come out as the roses that are on the other side. And so for me, as I walked through that, I developed this resilience SOS, because we all know that when we put out a distress signal, it's because there's nothing else we can do. But if we proactively operate with the resilience SOS, it keeps us from being in distress, even in some of the most difficult times. It allows us to continue to move forward. The first S in the resilience SOS is self-care. That's that, how does that mirror talk to you? How do you talk to yourself? How gracious and compassionate are you with you? How well do you establish boundaries? And I'm not just talking boundaries that say, oh, you don't have access to me, or whatever the latest fun meme is. I quote all those all the time as well. But self-care is really about are you overcommitting? Because it's not good self-care when you're trying to do too much. That's actually being kind of mean to yourself. Do you decide to accomplish your goals by belittling yourself? Do you feel like the only way in order for you to accomplish something is for you to be hard on yourself? If so, take a step back and think of a more gracious approach to moving yourself forward, to holding yourself accountable with grace. Because grace and accountability are not mutually exclusive. So practicing self-care. And yes, ladies, sometimes it is that bubble bath. Sometimes it is that pedicure. And gentlemen, sometimes it is the ways in which we, but ultimately it is, what is it that we are requiring of ourselves? Are we requiring too much? That's self-care. Are we not too overcommitted? The O in the SOS is optimism. Resilience is rooted in optimism. It is rooted in the notion that things will get better. And when it comes to our own personal failings, it's rooted in the notion that I will do better, that I will have a better outcome. And it's this kind of optimism that helps us to move forward even in some of the most difficult situations. We're here in LA, so I want to pose this question. I want to see how excited you'll get in here. I understand everybody's not from LA, but where's our LA chapter? All right. LA chapter in the house. So let me ask you all, LA chapter, who is the GOAT? Is it MJ or is it LeBron? Thinking about it. You're like, you want to say because of LA, right? What say you over here? Who's the GOAT, MJ or LeBron? MJ. See, this becomes somewhat generational. My youngest son would argue with you that LeBron is the GOAT all day long. So much so, this boy celebrates LeBron James's birthday. I did not even know when his birthday was until he's like, Mom, the guys are coming over. It's LeBron's birthday. Whoa, is that a holiday now? But as it turns out, because I researched this to figure it out, it turns out that LeBron is technically, hold on to yourself, he is the GOAT, statistically. Because LeBron James has had more rebounds in his career history than Michael Jordan has. And rebounds in basketball is your ability to say, that's all right, I missed that shot, I'm gonna get the next one. Or saying to your teammate, you missed that shot, that's all right, I got you on the next one. And rebounds are an important statistic, not only in basketball, but in life. How optimistic are you in growing through your challenges, through your difficulties, through your missteps, through even some of the most unimaginable things that could happen to you? Do you see the light? Now, I'm not talking about dismissing when bad things happen, but being optimistic is a leadership principle that takes us far, not only in our self-leadership, but for the leadership of our teams. General Colin Powell said it best that perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. Now, if you think about that through some of the difficult times that you've had, it was likely optimism that got you to the other side. It's never foolish to have hope. So that's the second O in the resilience SOS. And the only O. And then the last S is support. And this was the really important lesson for me. as someone who had become quite self-reliant. I mean, I got it was like my favorite expression. I got it. And even when I didn't say it, my body language and my mannerisms were that I got it, when sometimes I ain't got it. And so what I had to figure out was not only with my words, but also with my actions of being open to support. And through that, I learned how to better support others when they were having difficulty, whether it was a family tragedy or their own misstep, mistake, or misplacement. Learning to be supportive is key to resilience. Learning to get support is key to resilience. So using the Resilience SOS keeps us from having to declare an SOS and proactively staying in front of what challenges may come our way. Proactively preparing ourselves to be able to overcome what is happening so that our career progress doesn't get derailed, because in this fourth part of the approach, which is sharpen someone else, can't happen if you're pulled back from what's happened to you. Because ultimately what we learn, what we discover, what we find is not just for ourselves, but it's for the benefit of others, for the benefit of the community. So when we have figured something out, if we've found a great resource, we want to share that. We want to make sure that we are continuing to sharpen someone else. And scientifically, we understand that when we do what's called a teach back, if we teach somebody something we've learned, it reinforces that understanding for us as well. So there are personal benefits, but it's the communal and societal benefits that are especially important. Now, for those of you that are engaged in the WTS Foundation, I know this is not lost on you, because the idea of iron sharpens iron means that we were looking at ways of being someone's mentor. We're looking at coaching people both within the organization and in the community. You're modeling what it means to be a strong leader. You're modeling what it looks like to be leading, rising, and thriving. You're modeling what it looks like to be somebody that others want to follow, that are inspired by. It's not just social media influencers that inspire people. Just when you show up at work, you inspire people. And it's through inspiring people, through your actions, that you create the ripple effect that continues to grow the industry, that continues to make transportation resilient as a result of the strong women that are supporting it. And that is where we all get to kind of wake up in the morning, no matter how tired we are, wake up in the morning and go, who can I influence today? Who can I inspire today with a word, with a deed, or with a touch? We each have that opportunity. And so I want to ask you, I pose the question, how will you lead the way? You may not be Ruby Bridges, but by your very existence, you are continuing to pioneer and continuing to move forward initiatives, not only in your organization, but in the industry, that build greater inclusion, that bring about greater innovation, that advance the industry and the world at large. To be part of transportation is to be part of something that's so integral to our world, and that carries incredible responsibility, but also is aligned with such great purpose. So it's that purpose that I hope that you hold on to today. I would love for you to exchange some information. I like to call this the great give back. So I believe that feedback is a gift. It's not only a growth mindset strategy, but it's also an opportunity to share feedback. So if you wouldn't mind pulling out your cell phones and scanning this QR code, it's going to allow you to give feedback on what you've seen so far. And I'm going to wrap up with a couple of statements, with a few words before we wrap up. But in return for your feedback, feedback is a gift. I also have some free resources that I'll send you to help you continue your journey, to help support you and undergird you as you move through continuing to be the change that you want to see in this world. So I'll give you a moment to complete this, and then we'll move forward as I wrap up our presentation. Some of you may still be typing, but as we continue, just to conclude, When I was in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, we continued on to Cameroon. That was the next leg of the trip. And in Cameroon, I had the opportunity to stand in front of a frac vessel. And this frac vessel that you see pictured here is called the Galaxy. And the Galaxy was engineered to increase production at the well site and to have facilities for the crew and to have tech on site. That was its goal, that was its mission, that was its purpose. A few months later, I had the opportunity to board a different kind of ship. Yes, a fun ship, a carnival fun ship. And on this carnival fun ship, while also still a ship, we weren't working to increase production, we were just having fun. 2 ships, 2 different purposes. So for those of you under the sound of my voice, please understand that your unique purpose is unique to you, and you were engineered for a purpose that is specific to you. Don't compare your purpose to anyone else's. It's solely yours. Well, as iron sharpens iron, so one sharpens another. WTS International, you have just been sharpened. Thank you so much.